Welcome to another episode of How I Am Building This, where we interview startup founders that are in the thick of building their business. We learn from their mistakes and get practical tips to overcoming challenges. Today we have Dan from Tango. Hey Dan, how are you?
Hey Prateek, good to see you again. Excited to catch up and excited to be here.
Thank you so much for, of course, being here. Dan, I'm a huge fan. I know I had reached out to you when I was validating what I was building, trying to figure out if it had any legs. You've always been super helpful with your feedback. I've been watching you grow Tango from the sidelines, and it's just been such an exciting journey. But before we jump into all of that, I'd love to learn more about you. Who is Dan? Where did you grow up? What led you to HBS?
Yeah, sure. No, Dan's a pretty normal guy, I think. I grew up outside Boston, and I was a big sports guy growing up. I was just, kind of curious about other interesting things happening in the world. And so I got, thinking about tech pretty early on, and I joined venture capital at a college, and worked at Excel and then General Catalyst for about 4 years. Joined a portfolio company for a bit called Livongo. Eventually sold to Teladoc after an IPO, and helped me learn a lot about, hey, how does a great company operate? How do they go through a pivotal moment in their journey? And then I went to HBS, where I met, eventual co-founders, and we ultimately kind of did 1 year there, and then left to start Tango in the middle of the pandemic. But it was really just being motivated by seeing a lot of other great founders and just wanting to work on important problems, and then finding people to work on those that you care a lot about. So that's the quick story.
That's awesome. So how did you know that Ken and Brian were the two co-founders that you really wanted to dedicate the next 10 years of your life building something with?
Yeah, I mean, so the really important thing with us three is we all kind of knew each other in different contexts, and we really started out as friends. And we started as friends talking about big problems and ideas that we thought were interesting or curious. And we actually got together once a week while we were in school, and it was just an hour. And it was just like, hey, let's just do brainstorm sessions, talk about, common themes or common problems that we felt. And not that we ever thought, the three of us were all going to go start something together. We were like, three's probably too many. We're probably all CEOs. And it was this low stakes way of just exploring problem spaces and then getting to know each other in the process. So that was a big part of it. And then, fast forward, we actually did kind of work on a project together at school, and there's sort of this opportunity to take it a step further. And we kind of went to lunch one day, and we're like, should we try this out? None of us had ever really mentioned it before as kind of co-founders on a project. But by that point, we'd spent 5 or 6 months. So we had that familiarity and that trust too, that we were going to be there for each other before the idea. It wasn't going to be somebody who was going to backstab the other one and, suddenly start doing unexpected things. Yeah. So that was what was really important. We've been really lucky and really fortunate. It's worked awesome ever since.
That's awesome. How did you guys pick on CEO? I mean, Ken is of course CEO, but how do you guys decide that?
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't even think about it honestly for the first 6-7 months of just customer discovery and just exploration. And eventually when we were getting ready to incorporate, and you kind of gotta start to do some of those things, and we figured fundraising was down the road in a couple months. We got together and we were okay, let's talk about positions and just roles and responsibilities more so. And we all each came to it with the sort of caveat that hey, I don't really care. I just want to do whatever puts us in the best chance, best possible situation to win.
Yeah.
So I think we were fortunate to all have that mindset, and uh, and then we just talked about different roles and responsibilities. And Brian, he's sort of CTO, chief product officer at the same time. He was the more technical one out of all of us. He's the tinkerer. He's like super, super curious. Credit him for a lot of the amazing things you see in the product today. Uh, and then Ken and I are more operators, and he's really even keeled. He thinks a ton about people and people experience. And it was just a really natural strong suit of his with his background. He was a early manager at Uber and grew that company for 5 years and 40,000 people. And
Very cool.
then, I'm a little bit more just extrovert, sales and marketing, kind of background. So it's split up like that. And yeah, we never like that.
That's amazing. So you'll raise a seed round in 21. You'll raise a Series A last year. How did y'all, decide that these were the investors that y'all wanted to partner with?
Yeah, so fall 2020, we actually raised our seed round, and that was pre-revenue for sure. It was pre-product even. We had some sort of design partners, what we called them, but it was really 10 sort of different contacts at different companies that we've been repeatedly exploring and following up with, and sharing questions and ideas with them. And we basically went and talked to a bunch of seed stage investors. We had decided that, hey, we want to go raise a seed round because we had some opportunity costs with going back to school or getting other jobs. And said, hey, there's 3 of us, like, we think we can go raise. We think our backgrounds, and we think this target opportunity and problem is big enough. And we want to go hire good people and like start to go for it. And there could have been an alternate path where you try and go a bit more slowly, bootstrap, and potentially go less down the venture route. But for us, it was about speed and how quickly can we figure out if this is going to work really well or not. So we went to talk to seed investors, and we really kept it on the long-term idea and the long-term vision, and we're really able to speak to the customer point of view from all this discovery and research we'd done. And we sort of had to prove that, like, hey, we have a plan. Here's a prototype that works on this one application, and you can kind of see how it works, and this is how we're going to like get from point A to point B. But especially at that time, and with sort of the more Silicon Valley, New York types of seed investors, they need something really big, and they need to see a team that they think can go the distance. And so that's what we focused on with them, and we're able to raise a good round from great investors.
That's amazing. So on your website, you say that Tango helps people do more of the work that matters. What is that pain that you're solving, and for whom?
Yeah, so especially initially, we were just laser focused on this like one super painful like end user problem, let's call it, right? Which is creating documentation sucks. And that's most closely identified with our space, creating software training, documentation, how-to guides. And if you've ever had to like manually crop a screenshot and paste it in a Google Doc and try and make sure it looks good and it's lined up, and draw an arrow on top and write out instructions beneath it, like, the pain. It feels like you're doing like, grunt work when you could be doing much more valuable things. So that was the real specific pain. And we call that archetype for us as creators, but we've all had to create documentation. At larger companies, it's training managers, enablement teams, operations teams, sysadmins. They're the ones that they could spend like weeks and months on it. We've all had to do it at some point. And that was the initial problem. Where we are now, it is focusing on the end user for that creator. So the learner, right, or the viewer, if you will. And
Yeah.
so we're also thinking about how do they do the work that matters. And it's not looking for answers, and it's not like going to search the wiki, and it's not like, trial and error, clicking around or asking for a screen share of somebody to show you how to do it. It's how can you like go through the process work as quickly as possible, as confidently as possible, and use those human decision moments to, if it's a customer support situation, like evaluate, how you respond, how you escalate, but not
Yeah.
waste the time like trying to figure out how to create the ticket or like log it properly. So yeah, it is in some ways creating that, eliminating that lower level, like just how do I do X, Y, Z.
Understood. So clearly, like your first few users are like different from now to a certain extent. But how did you go about finding your like first few users? What was that feedback loop that you all developed that sort of helped you all to not only learn from them but iterate and of course build faster?
Yeah, so we're a PLG company, product led growth company. But this process kind of applies for anybody, I think, selling B2B overall. And you ultimately have to go talk to decision makers, and you have to go talk to people who have a viewpoint on like what really matters in their organization and their company. And you got to build this, whether you're going to end users first or buyers, you have to build this like organizational viewpoint. And basically, what are the things they think about week to week? What are their OKRs, right? What actually matters to them? So when we went out, we had no idea how we were going to go to market, if we were going to be bottoms up or, sales led. And we actually went and talked to probably much more heavily the VPs and, C-suites, and like talk to us about workplace efficiency and, organizational theory and onboarding 500 people. And so that's how we learned. And that gave us a really important viewpoint, which is that, okay, at the, buyer level in the boardroom, we can trace to some problem that they really care about, and good examples. If you look at like, okay, most of the first Tango product solves like helps you create a how-to guide in seconds. But what that translates to, what that traces to, for the higher ups, is if that happens at scale, right, we can cut time to value for a new BPO or new hires by 2 months, right? Because we have all this more enablement content. We can roll out NetSuite or Salesforce, 6 weeks faster, right? So we kind of started almost with the end in mind. When we built the prototype, we were imagining, hey, we're going to build this stuff that's like going to allow you to like compare how person A does something with person B, and like automates figuring out, the best practice. And it's going to be this like mind blowing, like analytical tool. And we went out to build just as first time founders. And it was like, okay, well, we got a screenshot tool that, will take a developer screenshot of each thing you click on. And it was like, whoa, it's really hard to build good product. And we had a really high bar for design and usability. Brian's been a huge driving force of just like end user delight, and you have to build products that focus on the end user. And so we went out and we were testing with people. It was like, whoa, like, okay, people, this is more people have to create documentation maybe than we thought, right? And we were like, you know what? Like, let's launch it bottoms up. And we went on Product Hunt and did a really horizontal launch. If you've ever had to create, take screenshots, right? Try this out. Doesn't matter if you're support or product team or, whoever else. And
I remember that.
Really, and so we got lucky with that. But yeah, it was a journey. You go in circles a little bit.
Yeah, that's for sure. So you then get onto Product Hunt. Y'all are ranked #1. How do you guys go from there? Like, what is that like next step, wherein which, yes, external folks have said, okay, this is a problem that they'd be willing to obviously pay someone to solve for. But like, what happens next?
Yeah, so it's you're pre-launch, you're blessed with different things pre-launch and post-launch, and
For sure.
even regardless of what happens, right? But pre-launch, you're blessed with this time to just be curious and like take a whole day and like stare at your notes and like trying to pull out themes and like follow up with people and like, hey, remember that thing you said? Like, could you explain more on what that meant? Like you have that time to like really build your like core conviction and beliefs and product strategy and then when you like launch, depending on what happens, like you suddenly flip to being operational and it's like, okay, like sign up flow is not working. We have all these support tickets and like, okay, somebody's got to pay, this tax bill that came in or something. And it's like, you're suddenly more just the car is moving and you have to make sure that it can still move, but it's a lot harder to find the time to figure out where you're going and what's the long-term, journey.
Yeah.
So like, one quick like lesson there is just like really relish the pre-launch time and, there's all this stuff about like, lean startup, like go as quickly as possible. But like, that first, whatever number of months or years it is like, that's when you really learn and, really build your instincts and your intuition. And so post launch, what do we do next, right? It's we just launched a free version and we're a screenshot tool and it was in your browser, and the number one thing people write in about is like, are you selling my data? Like, why is this completely free? And what's the ulterior motive? And we're like, no, we promise we're gonna like monetize. And we're like, oh shit, like we better like roll out a paid plan so they don't like freak out. So we actually focused on getting a paid plan to like let people feel more secure. We like updated our language to be a little bit more just like we're a real company and we have venture money and like we're not just some hackers at Far East that are making a tool to steal all your data. But it's doing that, and then you reset and you're like, oh geez, like okay, we've got users and who are our best users and like go try and talk to them and why did the user growth explode in the first place? Can we do more of that? So you start to think about like, okay, what are our functional like channel vision strategy? So like, how are we going to do product for the next 6-12 months based on all the stuff we just learned? How are we going to do marketing? How are we going to think about sales? How are we going to do operations? So that's when you start getting into company building and a little bit, less of the like product market fit discovery, which you should always keep doing, but suddenly you have the company building on your plate.
Yeah, that's for sure. So today, what you'll have 350,000 plus users, if I'm correct?
Yes, signups. Yeah.
Oh, got it. How do your users find you?
So initially Product Hunt, was just like kind of just some wave of users. I think it ended up being 20,000 in the first, 4 or 5 weeks, which super fortunate, super lucky. There's a lot of, there's a whole nother podcast on like how to do the Product Hunt thing. And like, long story short is like, they change the game every couple months with the different, and you kind of got to study it, but you ultimately need like a really clear, easy to use product that has what and how messaging and has visuals, and you do have to kind of go and tap your network and help you rally around launch day. So that's a whole separate thing. But that got us the first wave of early adopters, and these early adopter communities are super important when you're selling into like knowledge workers, especially at like more venture-backed companies and just early innovators and product adopters that can kind of help you get off the ground. And because you get a lot of tire kickers. You get people who come in and are like, just like, I want to try this, and I'm a product manager and I'm building something, I want to see what they got. And you get those, but you also get like people who scout for new stuff, and then they go write about you. And so Life Hacker Japan wrote about us, and we got users from Japan. So it's a really important like early adopter community where you will see derivative shoots of, hopefully people, writing more about you or sharing the news, sharing the word. One thing that did happen like 6 or 8 weeks after that is we got our first TikTok video. And it took us a little bit to figure it out, but there was a user trying us out. User generated content. They made a quick video. Be like, "Hey, found this really cool tool that does, called Tango. This is what it does," and they kind of showed it. And it ended up getting like 50, 60,000 views or something. The first one, we had an onboarding survey asking how did you hear about us? People started on TikTok, and we're like, "What? Where is that coming from?" So we're a little bit like dogs, watching the screen, because we're like, none of us, 3 co-founders had used TikTok, a couple other people on our team had, and we didn't think that was like a B2B acquisition channel. But what it turned out to be was that, short form video has been having a moment, especially more so now. But that was sort of like the early user generated content, right? When there's a free product that people get value from and you get time to value quickly for them, they can like get something done within 2 minutes that actually like helps them. There's this real opportunity where if people have that delightful short experience and it's a first impression, their likelihood to like share and like the virality factor, K factor of your product goes way up. And then you have this distribution channel where you can make a 20 to 30 second video, and creators can grow their audiences by like sharing cool, new, interesting stuff that they find. And it was just the right formula, and a few people did it naturally, organically, and so we reached out to sort of figure out like, hey, what's in this for you guys, and like, are there other people who do this? And so that's been a big part of our user growth story, and it still is. And, we do get about 40 to 50% of signups are coworkers, word of mouth. You get one person on a team, they'll share it in their Slack, and you'll get, 6 or 7 others. So we're fortunate we have a product that spreads well like that. But yeah, those are the 2 big ones.
That's awesome. So did you guys then like double down on TikTok since then, or have you guys, figured out other inbound marketing ways to, of course, drive traffic?
Yeah, so we have doubled down, and we've also explored, a bunch of other channels and initiatives. Early on, it's really interesting, right? You want to be experimental, you want to hedge, you want to compound if that's possible, but you also don't want to like scatter your focus too much, and you want to consolidate on what works. So it's like balancing both of those things. And we've tested a lot. We've got a thought leadership effort right now that's driving some really interesting results, kind of both B2B leads and end users. There's a bunch of communities out there, interest groups, that are really aligned with what we're doing, and so figuring out co-marketing and kind of co-partnership opportunities with other groups out there. But yeah, definitely double down on UGC and short-form video, and coworker word of mouth is the awesome gift that keeps giving. That's why we go on this app. That's why you have a premium product. So that's fun.
That's awesome. So I see on like your careers page that you're hiring for like a BD lead. Why is now the time to hire for this role? And what does the outbound sales process look like?
Yeah, so we're post Series A. we're 3 years into the company now. And, uh, uh, it took us a year and a half to even hire first go-to-market person, first, and then eventually kind of our sales leader, Colby, joined on. But um, it was really, hey, our strategy was focused on great end user products. That was the flywheel. It was really working. People were paying self-serve. Um, look for the opportunity, look for people pulling on your shirt to go bigger, or create an enterprise or a business plan, but don't rush into it, right? I think that's a mistake people make in both marketing and both sales, right? It's oh, we need users, hire growth people, hire a growth team, or oh, we need revenue, hire a sales team. And you'll get in a lot of trouble if you org build ahead of where your product is at, where your product market fit, really is. So on the commercial side, we've been blessed to be really thin and really effective and really scrappy. We've really used our product and our engineering team to create self-serve experiences that more or less when leads do come in, that people are aware of what they're buying, and then they're excited about it and they see the value. And sometimes it looks more like order taking,
Sure.
just selling. And so we tried to lean into that as much as possible, and not necessarily try to oversell deals where usage wasn't going to be good, and going to churn right away. And so we've really tried to at least on the sales side, wait for those opportunities to really be plentiful. Uh, Now we've focused on CP, our persona. We've learned a lot, selling, with a smaller team in the first year and a half, and we're now at the point where we feel we have a lot of predictability in the formula. Somebody's going to come in and be offensive right away. There's a ton of inbound. It's basically all inbound what we do. We actually don't do outbound yet. So yeah, we're trying to stay with it and not get out of ourselves.
That's awesome. All of us have made so many mistakes building our business, and especially as first time founders. Gosh, there's just so much that we have no clue about. Looking back, what were some of those things that y'all wish that y'all hadn't done?
Yeah, I mean, I talked about I think we were insecure, definitely, as first time, and I'd never done marketing or sales before, and I'd been a real operating company for 9 months, and I'd done venture capital for 4 or 5 years, and it was and I went to school, and it was you really don't know that much, but we had some insecurities, so I think we came in early, and we tried to learn about things we thought were going to be the case and thought they were going to be helpful. And so a couple examples. One, really thought we were going to be sales led coming out of the gate, right? We talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
But really went down the rabbit hole of how do we build a sales team, how do you do commission structures, and it was just all stuff that wasn't going to come up for another year and a half or 2 years, and kind of just got distracting. But in those early days, you're so excited. You're
Yes.
your willingness to learn is so high. You just want to soak up content and advice, and so really spent all this time on it. And then we go launch bottoms up product hunt, and I was oh shit, I wish I spent 3 months learning about PLG and design and brand and product. And so those learning days, I mean, yeah, be a sponge and be curious and be interesting, but don't pretend that you already have the future of your company figured out. And you don't need to sort of go down that either that upskilling or that org building path of like hiring ahead of before what's really working.
Yeah.
So a lot of hours I probably would have had back, and a lot of like stress and stuff that probably would have been saved. Um, uh, and then on the product side, I think we did move pretty fast. There's definitely some decisions we made where we could have gotten to answers uh, much more quickly, and we tried to just wrap too much strategy into like our early product, right? And this is maybe more of a product specific thing, but we built this way so when you create content on Tango, you have a workspace and you can, do stuff with the content that you make, and like you can share it from there in a couple different ways, and you can duplicate it, and you have archive and trash can, and so like those things like take some time to build, and we could have just built a Chrome extension that would have just pasted stuff that you captured directly into a new Notion page, and not gone and built like a bunch of this stuff, which we ultimately did need, but like it just set us 4 or 5 months away from like learnings that we could have gotten more quickly, and we then could have probably built that stuff better.
Yes.
So yeah, just you get ahead of yourself with strategy, and you think you can you think you've got it more figured out than you do, and there's going to be curveballs, and that's why it's important to just like stay focused on the moment and learnings, and not try and over future proof.
I see that. Yeah. One of the things that isn't necessarily spoken much about is like mental health, right? Especially being a founder. Gosh, it can take such a toll. We'd have a lot more down days than we'd have those up days. How do you manage your mental health, especially in those moments where it's like, you know what, I'm just ready just to throw in my hat?
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too. I mean, look, you can't bottle stuff up.
Yeah.
You have to talk to people about it. And that's why, if somebody comes and asks me about starting a company, I almost always recommend like, hey, go talk to people that you really respect and think could be co-founders. Like, try and make sure it's not just you. There's a lot of great success stories out there of solo founders, but it's lonely. It's like hard. There are things that like you just have to keep to yourself that you can't even talk about. And so co-founders, I mean, that's like a big one. If you don't have co-founders, just like early advisors, ideally not investors. Ideally, it's like other founders or operators. I've got a list of probably 8 to 10. Sometimes they change at different moments in time. Prateek, you actually helped me put me in contact with somebody that was super helpful in the early days. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
But you can just like play dumb with them. Just like say things like, I have no idea how this works, and like, what do I do? Like, is this normal? And like, how do I like interview somebody for this role? And it's just like, yeah, it gives you a little bit of like just people who could sort of say, look, here was my experience. This is what we did. This is what, seems to be normal, based on the industry. It gives you like, it just quells the doubt in your head a little bit. When you're able to chat with those types of people. That's the obvious stuff of like, hey, exercise, like, don't sit at your computer for 16 hours on a weekend. Like, if you're caught up in something, like, you gotta just like put it down for 2 days and come back to it later. And it's just, you can't win. You can't be, somebody told me this, you're not gonna have all A days. You gotta be okay with having a C plus or a B minus every once in a while. You'll get them in the long run, right? But you're not gonna win every day. It's
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I have this it's like one founder group that we end up meeting once every month, And yes, we're meeting for drinks and all of that good stuff, but it's really it's a really more of like a founder therapy session for us.
Oh, oh,
Which it's like, man, I don't know why I did this. And I made such a silly mistake, and my customers aren't signing up as fast as I thought they would. What else can I do? And it's just, I think those have been super helpful for me personally. But then besides that, I mean, for me having just like a strong support system at home with my wife and my kids, they're there, they're always there. They will not necessarily understand what I'm going through as a founder, but I have them, and especially during the down days, oh my God, it's just such a blessing.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the therapy stuff is so true, and it's
Yeah.
like once you talk about it with other people too, it's like it's life and death when it's in your head.
Yes.
But when you talk about it with other people, like you can laugh about it a little bit, and like you just you regain that perspective on like, oh man, like lost that one, like gonna do better next time. You move on. And it's hard to do by yourself. So the group stuff is great.
That's for sure. Then what's next for you? What's next for Tango?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a really exciting moment with Tango, and uh, we're growing kind of both on our self-serve motion and on the sales-led side in particular. We're seeing a lot of traction and bigger deals, and we're rolling out a new kind of product experience that's like starting to really gain some steam, and so it's like a lot of more just like okay, now we're seeing the stuff that's working, and it's just how do we capitalize? So it's an exciting time for Tango, and we'll likely go to the funding markets at some point again, and there's a lot of external factors there, but
Yeah.
we got a bunch of IPOs this month, and maybe that'll help. So that's that, and then me, like I'm in a little bit of a rotating role at Tango where I'm sort of the co-founder COO, right? And I love it because it helps me just go to what's either the biggest problem area or the biggest like uncovered opportunity area, and kind of rotate around. So I'm transitioning a few things, and I'm taking on a couple new things, and that's really exciting, and I'm having a personal blast doing it. So
That's awesome. That's amazing. Before we, of course, wrap this up, Dan, what advice do you have for like other founders as they're thinking about scale, whether it's inbound, whether it's outbound? What are some of those things that you'd recommend folks to at least try?
yeah, so I mean, at the heart of any successful growth or scaling plan is just like a really clear hypothesis and just understanding of like, okay, here's what our product does and the way that our customer describes it. Here are the exact characteristics that like if we're doing a discovery call, like we really want to hear these things from these types of people. And these are the jobs to be done, and these are the scenarios where like, we know where we thrive, right? And so when you get that stuff right and you boil it down, and it's not easy, it sounds easy. You can put out like a 70%, good guess in a day, maybe. To get to like 90, 95% and iterate on it takes weeks. But once you get that core plan, it's like the rest just falls in. And so it's like, okay, let's use Tango as an example. Software rollouts are like a great use case for like a larger deal, selling a bunch of seats for people to create content, how to use the software. It's a big project, it's got exec buy-in, it has urgency, it gets you through the sales cycle. So we went and just created these webinars around like how to crush your next software rollout, right? And like, top 5 things people get wrong around software rollouts. And the reason it works and it drives more demand gen is because it's like, okay, we really understood, product market fit into that problem, and like what are the elements of that problem that people talk about. you can borrow the ideas that you hear from them and just curate the learnings, right? But any successful program, like, it needs to start with that, just like, clear success criteria for your customer, for your product, and for the use case. And then you'll be able to, like, pretty quickly come up with, like, oh, okay, end users like really hate making screenshots. Like, we can show them in a 15-second video how not to do that ever again. And like, that's all it's going to take. And so it's starting.
That's awesome. Thankful. How can folks keep up with you and Tango?
Yeah, I mean, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, or follow there. Right there a little bit, and you can follow Tango on all the socials. If you like the work humor and the memes, go to Instagram, go to TikTok. If you like the company updates, it's a little bit more blog and LinkedIn. But we love to hear from folks. Shoot me a note, and um, yeah, happy to help others that are thinking about their journey too.
Awesome. Dan, such a pleasure as always. Thank you so much. Every single time that we meet or we speak, I always learn so much from you. So thank you so much for this time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Prateek. It's great to catch up, and yeah, big fan of you and what you're doing also. So really happy to be a part of this.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.